in prayer. You may proceed, ma'am.
Ama naming makapangyarihan at mapagmahal, maraming salamat sapagkat ikaw ay Diyos na mabuti at maaasahan sa lahat ng panahon. Kami ay nanunumbalik sa inyo at lumalapit na may buong pananampalataya upang hingin ang inyong gabay para sa aming sesyon ngayong hapon. Sa kabila ng aming pagkakaiba ng opinyon at pinaniniwalaan, tulungan niyo po kaming magkaunawaan at magtulungan para aming maipagtanggol at mapangalagaan ang kapakanan ng bawat mamamayan. Dalangin namin na sa huling mga araw ng ika-19 na Kongreso, bigyan mo kami ng karunungan at pag-aninaw sa aming mga pagpapasya. Pagkalooban mo po kami ng lakas ng loob at gabayan mo po kaming mga mambabatas na magpakita ng katapangan at katapatan sa aming sinumpaang tungkulin. Manaig nawa ang aming pagmamahal sa Pilipinas upang maitaguyod ang isang mas malakas at mas maunlad na bayan. Ang lahat ng ito aming itinataas sa ngalan ng Ama, Anak at Espiritu Santo. Amen.
Thank you, Senator Nancy Binay. Secretary, will please call the roll.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senator Binay, Senator Cayetano Alan, Senator Cayetano Pia, Senator De La Rosa, Senator Ejercito, Senator Estrada, Senator Gatchalian, Senator Go, Senator Antiveros, Senator Lapid, Senator Legarda, Senator Marcos, Senator Padilla, Senator Pimentel, Senator Poe, Senator Revilla, Senator Tolentino, Senator Tulfo, Senator Villanueva, Senator Villar Cynthia, Senator Villar Mark, Senator Zubiri, the Senate President.
With 21 senators present, Chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we dispense with the reading of the journal of the 52nd session, Tuesday, June 3, 2020, and consider the same as approved.
Any objection? Hearing none. Motion is approved.
Mr. President, I move that we defer the approval of the journal of the 54th session, Monday, June 9, 2025.
Any objection? Hearing none. Motion is approved.
Before we continue, Mr. President, we'd like to acknowledge some guests in gallery. Guests of Senator Joel Villanueva, our new OWA Administrator, Patricia Yvonne Kaunan, guests of Senator Bato de la Rosa, Vice Mayor John Lester Tan of Maramag, Bukidnon, guest of this representation, Congresswoman Jam Baronda of Lone District of Iloilo City, Vice Mayor Love Baronda of Iloilo City, Vice Mayor Velasco of Paete Laguna with the LGU officials, Vice Mayor Juan Ariel Argañosa Jr. with LGU officials of Mayhay Laguna, and Councilor Charmaine Alomolar of FAMI Laguna. Mr. President, I move to consider on third reading of bills the printed copies of which were electronically distributed to the members on June 7, 2025 in compliance with the 3-day rule in the Constitution. With that, I move to consider on third reading Senate Bill number 2987, the bill on the Office of the Chief State Counsel Act. So move, Mr. President.
Before acting on the motion of the Majority Floor Leader, Chair would first like to acknowledge and welcome the visitors and guests mentioned by the Majority Floor Leader who are here present in the Senate. Welcome to your Senate. Is there any objection to the motion of the Majority Floor Leader to vote on third reading the aforementioned bill? Hearing none, motion is approved. Senate Secretary is directed to comply and to proceed to roll call vote.
An act strengthening the legal staff of the Department of Justice, renaming it as the Office of the Chief State Counsel, redefining, expanding, rationalizing, and further professionalizing its organization and appropriating funds therefore. Roll call vote. The Honorable Senator Binay, Senator Cayetano Alan, Senator Cayetano Pia, Senator De La Rosa, Senator Ejercito, Senator Estrada, Senator Gatchalian, Senator Go, Senator Antiveros, Senator Lapid, Senator Legarda, Senator Marcos, Senator Padilla, Senator Pimentel, Senator Poe, Senator Revilla, Senator Tolentino, Senator Tulfo, Senator Villanueva, Senator Villar Cynthia, Senator Villar Mark, Senator Zubiri, the Senate President.
With 21 affirmative votes, 0 negative, 0 abstention, Senate Bill number 2987 is approved on third reading. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, I move to consider on third reading House Bill number 5598, the bill declaring Maasin City and municipalities of Malitbog and Padre Burgos as tourism zones. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved. Senate Secretary is directed to comply and to proceed to roll call vote.
An act declaring Maasin City and the municipalities of Malitbog and Padre Burgos, all in the province of Southern Leyte, as tourism zones. Roll call vote. The Honorable Senator Binay, Senator Cayetano Alan, Senator Cayetano Pia, Senator De La Rosa, Senator Ejercito, Senator Estrada, Senator Gatchalian, Senator Go, Senator Tiveros, Senator Lapid, Senator Legarda, Senator Marcos, Senator Padilla, Senator Pimentel, Senator Poe, Senator Revilla, Senator Tolentino, Senator Tulfo, Senator Villanueva, Senator Villar Cynthia, Senator Villar Mark, Senator Zubiri, the Senate President.
With 21 affirmative votes, 0 negative, 0 abstention, House Bill number 5598 is approved on third reading. Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, before we move on to other items of the agenda, there's some other guests at the gallery. As guests of Senator Bong Revilla, Governor Datu Pax Ali of the province of Sultan Kudarat, Congressman Jolo Revilla, and Congressman Uging Mercado of Southern Leyte.
To the aforementioned guests, welcome to your Senate.
Mr. President, I move that we proceed to the President's designation of Senate conferees to the Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of Senate Bill number 2534, the bill on the 100 peso daily minimum wage increase act of 2024, and House Bill number 11376, the bill on wage hike for minimum wage workers act. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, following members are hereby designated as Senate conferees to the Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2534 and House Bill number 11376 as follows. Senator Joel Villanueva as chairperson. This representation, Senator Jingoy Estrada, Senator J.B. Ejercito, Senator Alan Cayetano, Senator Win Gatchalian, and Senator Mark Villar. On the part of the minority, Senator Risa Ontiveros and Senator Coco Pimentel, our Deputy Minority Floor Leader and Minority Floor Leader respectively, are so designated. What is the pleasure of the Honorable Villanueva?
Yes, Mr. President, just to give honor to whom honor is due, it was actually Senator Jingoy Estrada who head the Committee on Labor when this particular measure was passed, and it just so happened that this representation is now the chair of Committee on Labor. But I'm also willing, Mr. President, to just be on the sides of Senator Estrada. We just want to put that on record. Thank you, Mr. President.
What is the pleasure of the Honorable Zubiri?
Yes, Mr. President, being the principal author of that measure, maybe you would consider
Please.
me being part of the bicameral conference committee.
What
you.
does the sponsor say?
Gladly, Mr. President. Gladly, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Chair hereby amends the designation and adds Senator Juan Miguel Zubiri to be part of the bicameral conference committee report on the disagreeing provisions of Senate Bill number 2534 and House Bill number 11376. So ordered. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we proceed to the Senate President's designation of Senate conferees to the Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of Senate Bill number 2821, the bill on Accelerated and Reformed Right-of-Way Act, and House Bill number 6571 on the Right-of-Way Act. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, in compliance, the chair hereby designates the following members as Senate conferees to the Conference Committee on the Disagreeing Provisions of Senate Bill number 2821 and House Bill number 6571, namely Senator Mark Villar as chairperson, this representation, as well as our minority leaders, Senator Aquilino Pimentel, Coco Pimentel III. So ordered. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa is seeking the floor for us. He would like to deliver a privilege speech.
What is the pleasure of the honorable? Before recognizing the Honorable De La Rosa, Senator Pimentel is raising his hand. What is the pleasure of the Honorable Pimentel?
Shouldn't we, in good faith, implement the approved motion from yesterday, Mr. President, that at 4 o'clock we should be taking our oath as senator judges? Then we'll give way to the privileged speech, Mr. President. So that was the motion approved by the body yesterday.
Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, we will be honoring that what was agreed upon yesterday, but this is a personal collective privilege, and any member of this August body can just stand up and avail of this collective of this privilege hour, Mr. President.
No, I don't think so, Mr. President. This is a privileged speech. This is a privileged speech. This is not a privileged motion. So my motion is to execute and implement what was agreed upon yesterday. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we take our oath.
Senator,
I make of record the time. It's 4:31 p.m. Mr. President.
Senator De La Rosa.
Yeah, Mr. President, it was very clear yesterday that we agreed that before I take my oath as member of the impeachment court, I should have delivered my privilege speech. That's why I made it a precondition to my approval or to my agreement to the motions yesterday that I'm willing to take oath as a member of the impeachment court, provided let me first deliver my privilege speech. And very clear, it was agreed by the minority
No,
leader
no,
yesterday.
Mr. President, no. It was stressed the convening of the court. That was the issue. And the agreement natin, the oath taking is not the convening of the court. It was very clear, Mr. President.
Several members are raising their hands. May I first acknowledge our Majority Floor Leader, Senator Tolentino. Thereafter, our Deputy Minority Floor Leader, Senator Ontiveros.
Mr. President,
Senator Tolentino may proceed.
with the permission of the gentleman. Mr. President, let me remind the gentleman that yesterday this representation moved to expunge from the records the word agreement, precisely because this representation would want that all matter that arose yesterday should be express stipulations coming from the mandate of the Constitution. Yung agreement po siguro inalis na natin to reflect the solemnness of the proceedings yesterday. So, kung ano po yun na pag-usapan, Mr. President, siguro yung dalawang ginoon na lamang muli ang magkasundo, pero the record should not reflect the word agreement. Iyon po lang yung sinasabi ko, Mr. President. Maraming salamat po.
Mr.
Noted.
President,
Senator,
this
prior
is
to
this is important because it's related. So, what I'm asking
Senator
to be,
Pimentel, you may proceed.
what I'm asking to be enforced is the motion approved already, Mr. President. So we had approved by the plenary. A motion was approved by the plenary. So yun lang.
Senator Ontiveros is recognized.
I second the motion of the minority leader, Mr. President. The motion to implement the approved motion. Napakahirap naman po magpatupad ng ganyang kasimple. Mr. President, under Section 3 of our Rules of Procedure on Impeachment Trials, the presiding officer shall administer the prescribed oath or affirmation to the members of the Senate then present and to the other members as they shall appear, whose duty it shall be to take the same. So yung pagka wala po o yung hindi pa po pagkasumpa ng ibang mga senador, hindi naman po hadlang sa mga present ngayon at manunumpa ngayon para magsimulang tuparin yung tungkulin namin bilang miyembro ng impeachment court. Kung nais po ng good gentleman from Davao mag-deliver ng privilege speech ngayon, maari namang pong ituloy na po yung pagpapatupad ng agreed motion kahapon, manumpa kaming lahat na iba sa inyo bilang presiding officer, and then pakinggan po natin ang privilege speech ng good gentleman from Davao at pagkatapos kung nais niya ay pwedeng manumpa na ayon dito sa ating rules of impeachment, Mr. President. So
Mr.
sinusugundahan ko po yung motion ng minority leader na gawin na po natin yung approved motion kahapon. Salamat po, Mr. President.
Chair would like to make some remarks before acknowledging Senator De La Rosa. There was a prior motion made by the majority floor leader. There is no motion to second as of yet because we first have to dispose of the first motion made by the majority leader with respect to the recognition of Senator Bato. But we note the manifest. We will consider and take note of the remarks of Senator Ontiveros as a manifestation for the meantime. Now, the movement is here. The person who made the motion yesterday. Perhaps when I suspend session, you can discuss it. But for the record, there is no attempt whatsoever, and kindly, I hope people will refrain from making insinuations that there is an intent not to proceed with what was agreed upon yesterday simply because of the time. Because I was here at 4 p.m. and I waited until we had enough numbers for a quorum. And we will proceed as scheduled with respect to that. So whether Senator Bato, as will be discussed when we suspend, will speak first, or we will do what is being suggested by the minority floor leader. In either case, both will be done today. So before I recognize the movement, Chair will suspend the session so that you can discuss. Session is suspended.
Mr. President,
Senator Cayetano is recognized.
with the permission of the Majority Leader and Senator Bato, the Minority Leader, may I just offer some voice of experience? Actually, sinabi na to ni SP, pero I'll just elaborate. But let me start out by saying, I understand why the Minority Leader stood up. Yes, minority at mas konti sila, but they have a role to play. It's not only a very important role today, it's an essential role. It's not only a role in our legislative session, it's a role in holding the second highest person in our government accountable. They have fought for that not just yesterday, but the Minority Leader, despite running for Congress, have continued, in Tagalog, tinutukan to. And in fact, I have to apologize to him, medyo mas tama ka na yung forthwith means agad, pero tinignan ko na yung Filipino version, isusunod agad. In that context, makikiusap ako sa Minority Leader. We've been here long enough, dun sa atin na 3-4 terms na pag nag-argue kung sinong una, tatagal tayo na 1-2 oras, walang mauuna. So kung gagawin natin yung forthwith today, ibig sabihin isusunod agad. I looked at the rules, no? Sabi po kasi talaga pagka personal privilege, pwede mauna. But ang sabi nga ni Minority Leader and backed up by the Deputy Minority Leader, we know how important the impeachment court is. So may I ask a further favor indulgence from the Minority Leader that we allow Senator Bato so that we also do not violate. We're going to violate 1 or 2 things today. Violate the agenda, dahil sa agenda talaga mag-oath taking, or violate our rules, dahil sabi sa rules, anytime pwede kang tumayo sa personal privilege. So may we ask for the indulgence ng minority to allow Senator Bato to deliver his speech because binanggit niya to sa akin kahapon. Kung ako nagkulang, pasensya na po kayo dahil ang pakiusap niya kahapon, bago mag-oath, magsasalita siya. So if we can allow him, then with the permission of the Majority Leader, I'll volunteer you to forthwith immediately, agad-agad move na we take our oath as members of the impeachment court. If it's acceptable to the Minority Leader. It's not the perfect solution, sir, but I hope it's acceptable.
What does the Minority Leader say?
Basically, Mr. President, we will agree to the suggestion of Senator Alan Cayetano. Pero ito lang yung point ko for those of you still present or serving in the 20th Congress. There is a purpose, meron tayong agenda. So when you are in number 7 for privilege speech, you cannot just stand up and then accelerate the tackling of your item in the session, Mr. President, by just standing up. So ano na lang po yun, just an observation. So with that, I willingly give way to our colleague with this important message for us, Mr. President, Senator Bato de la Rosa.
We thank Senator Pimentel, also thank Senator Cayetano. Sana mas madalas-dalas siya dito. Hindi ikaw, Coco, si Alan. And also for the record, I'd like to assure our Minority Floor Leader and Deputy Minority Floor Leader that we will, the chair would rather preside over the oath-taking of members of the impeachment court today. Before we adjourn, the clock not with standing to give way to the privileged speech of the Honorable De La Rosa, because the Senate, after all, is a deliberative body. Everyone should be free to say their piece, subject to certain limitations, of course. And we are free to agree or disagree. And if the matter cannot be settled, for it to be put to a vote. If there are no other members who wish to state their piece on the matter, Chair now recognizes Senator Bato de la Rosa. You may proceed, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, esteemed colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, imagine a house, Mr. President, an unfinished one, one that is still being built. Where do we begin? Of course, with solid foundations, a level ground, as well as an honest blueprint. Hindi pwede ang mga shortcut. Hindi pwedeng madaliin kung babaliwalain ng mga architects at mga engineers ang mga basic requirements. Hindi magiging matibay ang itatayong bahay. Maari itong magdulot ng panganib, hindi lamang sa mga maninirahan dito, kundi maging sa ibang mga kabahayan sa paligid nito. If any of us happen to discover that the house we were living in was structurally unsound, we would likely scramble to have it retrofitted. We would probably file cases in anger against developers. I doubt any of us would simply shrug our shoulders saying, andito na tayo hayaan na lang. Now, imagine a house of representatives that built and filed the impeachment complaints against Vice President Sara Zimmerman Duterte. Trabahong inupuan sa simula. At noong papalapit na ang deadline, biglang naging buzzer beater. Mabilisang pinasa sa atin at ngayon tayo naman ang pinipilit at minamadali. Pinapagalitan pa nga, that is your sworn duty. Tama na ang pamumulutika. This is undue delay. Sandali. Bakit kaya sa pagkakataon at pangyayaring ito, tila madali lang para sa atin ang sabihin, andito na tayo Andyan na nga Mr. President, the House of Representatives are of the belief that they have built a solid case against Vice President Sara Zimmerman Duterte, prompting them to file an impeachment case. But how sound are the foundations of this impeachment case filed against the Vice President? Kagaya po ng konstruksyon ng isang bahay, ang proseso ng impeachment ay kinakailangan na nakatungtong sa isang solidong pundasyon. Ibig sabihin, ang mga arkitekto na pasimuno nito ay may tungkulin na tiyakin na may tatayuan ang kanilang mga akusasyon. Ngunit, ang impeachment ay isang proseso na hindi nakasalalay lamang sa mga arkitekto o mga instigador nito. Sa totoo lang, pinakamadali ang naging gampanin ng HOR sa proseso ng impeachment. Yun ay ang pagbubuo ng mga akusasyon, Mr. President, kahit sino po ay maaring magparatang kung kanino man. Sa bahagi naman po natin, ang pinakamahirap, ang paghusga, ang paggawad ng isang hatol na makatarungan at katanggap-tanggap. Anuman ang nakatuntong sa mahinang pundasyon ay laging may panganib na gumuho. Kung ang isang impeachment case ay minadali at nakasandig sa paghihiganti at pamumulitika, ay maihalin tulad sa isang strukturang itinayo sa gilid ng bangin. Bagamat tungkulin o obligasyon natin sa Senado na mag-convene bilang impeachment court, responsibilidad din natin na maging mapanuri at critical sa impeachment complaint na ipinasa rito sa ating bulwagan. As I usher in my 6th year in the Senate, my 39th year in public service, Mr. President, I can say I have gotten better at spotting irony. What we refuse to let happen to our houses, we seem to have allowed our House of Representatives to do in broad daylight, right under our noses, and at the expense of our institution's esteemed reputation. With this, Mr. President, my dear colleagues, allow me to express my serious concerns surrounding the constitutionally unsound foundation of the articles of impeachment that the Senate is set to tackle. Article 11, Section 3, Paragraph 2 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution provides that a verified complaint for impeachment may be filed by any member of the House of Representatives or by any citizen upon a resolution of endorsement by any member thereof, which shall be included in the order of business within 10 session days and referred to the proper committee within 3 session days thereafter. Keeping in mind the aforementioned constitutional provision. Recall that on December 2, 2024, the first impeachment complaint against Vice President Duterte was filed before the Secretary General of the House of Representatives. The second and third impeachment complaints were filed on December 4, 2024 and December 19, 2024, respectively. These complaints were each endorsed by members of the House of Representatives. While the Constitution requires that a complaint for impeachment must be included in the order of business within 10 session days, the House of Representatives Rules of Procedure in impeachment proceedings require the Secretary General to immediately refer the complaints to the Speaker. Despite this, no action was ever taken by the House on the 3 impeachment complaints filed. Hindi po ito simpleng pagkalimot, Mr. President. Ito po ay tahasang pagsantabi ng kanilang internal rules at constitutional provision. Sinadya po nila na baliwalain ang konstitusyon. Maliwanag po ito sa mga naging panayam kay House Secretary General Velasco. In media interviews, the Secretary General publicly disclosed that the members of the majority of the House of Representatives asked him to withhold the transmittal of the impeachment complaints to the Speaker. Their goal then was to give themselves more time to decide whether or not to file another impeachment complaint. Pinaghintay po ng mayorya ng House of Representatives ang 3 impeachment complaint. May ganyan po ba silang kapangyarihan? Tila po, ito ay matatawag na grave abuse of discretion. Then, on February 5, 2025, more than 2 months after the first impeachment complaint was filed, the House of Representatives took the express, the fast-track route according to Secretary General Velasco. Kung ang 3 naunang impeachment complaint ay pinadaan sa EDSA, mukhang sa Skyway po ang piniling landas ng House para sa pang-4 na impeachment complaint para maiuwi ito sa Senado. With less than an hour before the close of session of that day, the House of Representatives transmitted to the Senate a verified complaint for impeachment against Vice President Sara Z. Duterte, purportedly signed by 215 members of the House of Representatives. My honored colleagues, had the House complied with their own rules and the Constitution, the 3 previous impeachment complaints would have been referred to the appropriate committee by the time the present impeachment complaint was filed and sponsored by the members of the House of Representatives. In other words, Your Honors, the intentional inaction of the House of Representatives allowed its members to purportedly circumvent the one-year ban enshrined in Article 11, Section 3, Paragraph 5 of the Constitution. Given the glaring circumvention of the Constitution, should we allow impeachment complaints which are constitutionally infirm to be heard and tried by this body? Kung defective po ang foundation ng impeachment complaint, marirepair o marirehabilitate ba ito ng pag-convene ng impeachment court? Hindi po ba mawawala ng saysay ang pag-convene ng Senate as an impeachment court kung malinaw na labag sa konstitusyon ang nais nating itayo? Kaya ang impeachment ay isang sensitibong proseso. Sa pagsampa pa lamang nito, binabato na agad ang akusado ng putik na kahit maakwit ay tila habang buhay nang nakamansa sa kanyang pagkatao. Pagkatapos ng impeachment, anuman ang magiging hatol, the damage done to the reputation of the accused will forever be irreparable. He or she will never be the same again. Some of the members of this august body may not agree with me and may take a different view as to whether the one-year ban has been violated by the House of Representatives. To settle this issue, the separate opinion of Chief Justice Renato Ispuno in Francisco versus House of Representatives provides this body a direction on the course of action that we may take when confronted with the same issue I laid down. Former Chief Justice Puno said that before the Senate is convened as an impeachment court, the Senate, which has primary jurisdiction over the case, can already decide the question on whether the one-year ban has been violated or not. That is why, insisting ako na ma-deliver ito before we convene as an impeachment court. Hindi po natin kailangang hintaying magbagong anyo ang Senado at maging isang ganap na impeachment court. Ngayon pa lamang ay maaari na nating pagdesisyonan ito. Sumunod ba sa saligang batas at sa internal rules ng mababang kapulungan ang impeachment complaint na kanilang ipinasa dito sa Senado? Nasa Senado po ang pagkakataon upang magwasto. Kung minadali ng isuar ang impeachment complaint, bakit kailangan natin itong tumbasan ng kaparihong kawalang pagpapahalaga sa tamang proseso? Madalas po natin sabihin, dito sa ating kapulungan, we are men and women of rules. Manatili po tayong ganon, malayo mula sa ingay at impluensya ng kung sino mang may mga personal na interes at pakinabang sa pagmamadaling ipinipilit sa atin. Mr. President, the inaction of the House of Representatives resulted not only in a possible violation of the Constitution, but in another justiciable controversy. It is worthy to note that its new Congress, empowered by a fresh electoral mandate in both the House of Representatives and the Senate, is not bound by the legislative actions of its predecessors. Hindi po natin maaring pilitin ang mga papalit sa atin sa future Congresses na ipagpatuloy ang anumang ating nasimulan. Sabi nga po ni President Chis Escudero kahapon, the Congress cannot pass an irrepealable law. Lahat ay pwedeng baguhin at galawin ng mga sumusunod na mahahalal sa Kongreso. Maari pong hindi sila gumalaw at hayaan lamang na nakatiwangwang ang anumang proceeding na sinisimulan ng mga nauna. When the fourth impeachment complaint was submitted, the 19th Congress was teetering on the brink of a long slumber. The Senate is now being urged to convene with only 2 session days. 20 days remaining before the 19th Congress closes. Hindi man po ako abogado, alam ko pong walang kaso, mapasibil, administrative, o kriminal na dinidinig sa loob lamang ng 1 buwan. Naghihingalo na po ang buhay ng 19th Congress. Bakit po natin ipipilit pa kung ang pintuan ng 20th Congress ay malapit nang magbukas? Malinaw naman po sa ating Rules of Procedure on Impeachment Trials, kailangang isumon ang person impeached para paharapin sa Senado. Kailangan din siyang bigyan ng 10 araw para mag-submit ng kanyang answer. 5 araw naman ang ibinibigay sa mga prosecutor para mag-file ng kanilang reply. Kaya po, kahit mag-convene ng impeachment court bukas, summon at pagtanggap lamang sa pleadings ang kayang magawa ng 19th Congress. Sigurado na po tayo na ang trial kasama ang pagrepresenta ng ebidensya ay magaganap sa 20th Congress, kung saan bago na po ang komposisyon ng Senado at mababang kapuluan. Because of the change in members, questions are being raised on the jurisdiction of the 20th Congress to carry on with an impeachment trial commenced in the previous Congress. Should the 19th Congress convene an impeachment court, what assurance exists that the 20th Congress would continue the trial? Without such assurance, any efforts by the 19th Congress would constitute a significant waste of government resources. Even the authority of the House of Representatives to continue prosecuting is being questioned since the said complaint was filed by a House of a different composition. In fact, some of those who signed the complaint failed to secure a seat in Congress in the recently concluded elections. Mukhang kailangan po natin ng positive act from the 20th Congress House of Representatives na kanilang itutuloy ang impeachment complaint na ginawa ng 19th Congress House of Representatives. Mr. President, the constitutionally given power and mandate of the Senate to try and decide all cases of impeachment is an immense responsibility that must be exercised in good faith with sincere intention to fulfill a solemn oath, not with haste but with careful circumspection, mindful of both the political and legal nature of the exercise. Ang impeachment ay isang proseso na hindi lamang mag-aalis sa pwesto ng isang mataas na opisyal ng pamahalaan. Ito ay isang armas laban sa sinuman na hindi umaayon sa kagustuhan at mga interes ng mga kaaway sa politika. Ito ay apoy na hindi lamang nakapapasok, kundi may kakayahan na tupukin at sunugin hindi lamang ang isang bahay, kundi isang buong komunidad. Mapanganib ang impeachment sa kamay ng mga mapagsamantala. Inilalagay ang impeachment para protektahan ang taong bayan, hindi isakdal at hiyain ang kumakatawan sa kanila. in the 2012 case of Chief Justice Renato C. Corona versus Senate of the Philippines, the Supreme Court declared impeachment, described as the most formidable weapon in the arsenal of democracy, was foreseen as creating divisions, partialities, and enmities, or highlighting pre-existing factions, with the greatest danger that the decision will be regulated more by the comparative strength of parties than by the real demonstrations of innocence or guilt. The House of Representatives, in transmitting the articles of impeachment to the Senate at the last hour and after refusing to act for over 2 months on 3 previously filed complaints pending with the House Secretary General, has instead placed the Senate in a tight and impaired position where any decision, action, or inaction on its part will be put into question. An acquittal, conviction, or even the propriety of proceeding with trial will be hounded not only by legal or constitutional questions, but by accusations of extreme bias, partiality, and lack of sufficient deliberation. Lagi kong sinasabi, Mr. President, hindi ako abogado. Nevertheless, this cannot disqualify me from speaking against possible constitutional blunders. Hindi kailangan maging engineer para masabi ng isang tao na unlivable at hindi ligtas ang isang bahay o building. Alam nyo, alam natin, kung kailan matibay at pulido ang pagkakagawa katulad ng isang bahay na bato. Alam din natin kung kailan hindi. When the floor starts to crack, when the walls begin to shift, and when leaks appear where there should be none, there and then, Mr. President, there and then, forthwith, we say, this was not built well. Gayon din sana sa impeachment case na ito. The cracks and holes have begun to show. Alam nating may mga tanong na hindi pa nasasagot, lalo na patungkol sa constitutional soundness ng nasabing impeachment complaint. It is my humble opinion then, Mr. President, that with this knowledge must come swift and intelligent action. Kung gaano natin kabilis i-condemn at ipagiba ang mga strukturang hindi ginawa ng maayos, ganoon din dapat tayo kabilis umaksyon kung ang nalalagay sa alanganin ay ang ating konstitusyon. In the spirit of true action, therefore, allow me to end by moving. I respectfully move that in view of its constitutional infirmities and questions on the jurisdiction and authority of the 20th Congress, the verified impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte be dismissed. Mr. President, since I have still the floor, I would like to call Senator Bongo. Mr. President.
Mr. President, will the good gentleman yield the floor for a few remarks as part of the privilege hour availed by Senator De La Rosa?
Yes, Mr. President. No problem with me. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I agree with the speech of Senator Bato De La Rosa. Ang gusto nating kalabasan ng paglilitis na ito ay justisya.
Senator Go, before you proceed, Chair has not yet recognized you. Session is suspended. a seconding speech to the motion he made at the end of his privileged speech. The chair has not yet acted on that motion and has not yet recognized Senator Go. And before the chair declared a short suspension, two members raised their hand to be acknowledged and be heard, and the chair intends to listen to them first before acting on the pending motion. Senator Ontiveros first, and then Senator Villanueva. You may proceed, ma'am.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. President. Immediately after the speech of the good gentleman from Davao, I move that any interpellation or any action, any seconding speech on the privileged speech be suspended momentarily after his speech to allow us to take our oath, which was the subject of the approved motion yesterday, and again, which was the subject of the approved motion yesterday, which is an offshoot of a question of privilege, which takes precedence over all motions. So I restate my motion, Mr. President, to momentarily suspend any action, whether interpellation or seconding speech, on the privileged speech of the good gentleman from Davao, para sa wakas bigyang daan yung inaprubahan nating motion kahapon na manumpa na po kaming I still have the floor. I have the floor, Mr. President. I have the floor, Mr. President, to make way for taking of the oath before the presiding officer.
The motion of Senator Bato, as the chair said earlier, after we hear from Senator Villanueva now.
With all due respect, Senate President, the Deputy Minority Leader is proposing yet another motion on top of the pending motion.
The chair
That
will
is not allowed.
The chair has not yet acted on that motion and will not yet so act on that motion. And will be making a ruling after we hear from all of those who raised their hands earlier. So, with the indulgence of Senator Marcos, can we hear from Senator Villanueva?
Thank you very much.
And then the chair will rule on the pending matters. Senator Villanueva is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, if I hear it right, the movant made a motion to dismiss the impeachment complaint, if I heard it right, Mr. President. Mr. President, may I just place on record that this representation respectfully object to that motion. Mr. President, for various reasons, Mr. President, that this representation would like to raise on the floor, Mr. President. One, Mr. President, is that the Senate, as a legislative body, and at this point in time, we have not yet convened, Mr. President, as an impeachment court. And therefore, Mr. President, this representation believes that we have no constitutional authority as legislative body to dismiss an impeachment complaint. Let me quote the Constitution under The Senate's role is expressly limited to trying and deciding all cases of impeachment after the House of Representatives has transmitted a valid articles of impeachment. Mr. President, the Senate, in its capacity as a legislative body, does not possess the constitutional authority to unilaterally dismiss an impeachment complaint. And under the constitutional framework, the Senate assumes a distinct and separate function when acting an impeachment court. Please don't get me wrong, Mr. President. In fact, a lot of the statements made by Senator Bato de la Rosa, I share. I shared the sentiments, Mr. President. In fact, Mr. President, when the impeachment case was filed or the articles of impeachment were transmitted here in the Senate an hour before we adjourned, Mr. President, before our break, a week after, more than 380 pages, Mr. President, of annexes ang dumating po, Mr. President. So, dun pa lang, Mr. President, I agree with Senator Bato's statement na somehow minadali or tignan natin. But again, Mr. President, my only concern here is that we have not yet convened as an impeachment court. We can probably dismiss this or even entertain the motion if we are already acting as an impeachment court. Let me go to my other point, Mr. President. The Senate lacks the power to dismiss an impeachment complaint and has no constitutional duty to proceed to trial. And that's why, Mr. President, if you recall yesterday, this representation mentioned that notices are very important when the minority leader made a motion yesterday that he wanted to stop our legislative work and proceed with the convening of the impeachment court. And he made mention about the calendar of activities, kung kailan magsisimula, ano yung timelines, etc., Mr. President. And that's why I objected again, Mr. President. So in the name of consistency, Mr. President, let me again state for the record, the power of initial determination belongs solely to the House of Representatives. You and I, Mr. President, were members of the House for quite a long time. And we talk about it all the time, that it is the sole power of the House to determine kung yung impeachment or articles of impeachment na itatransmit sa Senado ay mayroong required votes, etc., etc., at ang tanging sole authority naman ng Senado is to act as an impeachment court, not, Mr. President, not as a gatekeeper of the complaint's sufficiency. Further, Mr. President, it bears emphasis that the framers of the Constitution intended a clear division of roles. House initiates and the Senate tries and decides. Again, Mr. President, I am not even going to say whether or not I will support the motion of our dear colleague, Senator Bato de la Rosa. I'm just saying, Mr. President, that it should be posed, Mr. President, in the impeachment court. Last but not the least, Mr. President, the Senate as a legislative body, or even when it sits as an impeachment court, Mr. President, ito po yung ating posisyon, may not dismiss the impeachment complaint due to change of Congress. Impeachment, Mr. President, is a political discretion. It's not a political discretion, but a constitutional mechanism rooted in the principle that public office is a public trust. Alam na po natin lahat yan bilang mga lingkod bayan. Yung sinasaad ng 87 Constitution, which provides public office, is a public trust. Public officers and employees must at all times be accountable to the people. This duty, Mr. President, is not suspended, nullified, or extinguished by the expiration of the legislative calendar or the transition to a new Congress. But again, I also believe and support the statements made a while ago by Senator Bato de la Rosa. Yung pong functus officius ng Senado, hindi ho applicable sa atin dahil kalahati nga ho sa atin dito magiging parte pa rin ng impeachment court, parte pa rin ng Senado. Pero doon po sa House, hindi na. So kailangan talaga na malaman natin kung sila'y interesado pa dun sa impeachment na kanilang i-file. Mr. President, just this morning, if I don't know if this morning or last night, I saw an article. I'm not sure if it's Justice Ascuna or Attorney Divina saying that the House must actually do something, whether at least the very least is to pass a resolution authorizing, Mr. President, their representatives, their prosecutors, that they are indeed have the blessing of the 20th Congress. Kaya po, muli, Ginoong Pangulo, ang aking pag-object doon po sa motion ng ating kagalang-galang at kaibigan, Senator Bato de la Rosa, ay base po sa mga binanggit ko po na mga reasons. Maraming salamat, Ginoong Pangulo.
Before the chair makes a ruling, Senator Bato.
Yes, Mr. President. I just would like to share this august body, the basis for my motion. According to Chief Justice Renato Puno in Francisco versus House of Representatives, a number of things can be done before the Senate is convened as an impeachment court. For example, the Senate, which has the primary jurisdiction over the case, can decide the question of whether the one-year ban has been violated or not. Likewise, the Senate can decide whether the complaint on its face has any legal basis.
Mr. President, if I may.
So as not to belabor the point, Chair would like to state the parliamentary status and make a ruling. Again, to reiterate, Senator Bato, after the end of his privileged speech, made a motion, but before the chair could act on that motion, he asked for the recognition of Senator Bato, who wanted to second the motion of Senator Bato at the end of his speech. Before the chair could act on that motion and recognize Senator Bato, Senator Ontiveros and Senator Villanueva signified their intention to speak. Senator Ontiveros made a motion. Made a motion to suspend further consideration of the matter at hand so that we can proceed to take our oaths. And then Senator Marcos raised the point of order that there are too many pending motions on the floor and that we should dispose of them, as correctly pointed out by her. Senator Villanueva objected to the motion of Senator Bato. With the permission of Senator Villanueva, hindi ko po ituturing na objection yung inyong sinabi dahil ayon mismo sa inyo, hindi naman kayo tutol doon sa motion ni Senator Bato, kanya lamang. Gusto nyo at sa paniniwala nyo, pwede lamang ito magawa kapag tayo ay isang impeachment court na at hindi bilang isang Senado. Ayon sa authority na kinukot ni Senator Bato, may opinion, may concurring opinion. Si dating Chief Justice Puno na pwedeng itong gawin ng Senado. Concurring and dissenting opinion siya sa pagkakaalala ko sa Francisco. With the permission of the gentleman on the floor, the chair is of the considered view that and takes well the position of Senator Villanueva. We will act on the motion of Senator Bato, but as an impeachment court. We cannot act on the motion of Senator Bato unless we take our oaths as members of the impeachment court. Therefore, once the impeachment court is after we take our oaths and we convene the impeachment court, Senator Bato can reiterate his motion, Senator Go can then second his motion, if at all, and we will proceed to dispose of such motion after we hear from everyone who wants to speak on the matter.
Mr. President, just to clarify your statement, Mr.
Senator
President.
Villanueva, before I make a ruling.
Yes, Mr. President, you were saying, Mr. President, because the way I look at it, you're saying, Mr. President, that in order for us to dispense with the motion of Senator Bato, we would have to convene.
We would have to convene the impeachment,
impeachment
court,
court.
as you said earlier.
Yes, Mr. President, I thank you for that. But in order for us to convene again, Mr. President, and just for the information of our law students and those who wanted to learn from these proceedings, Mr. President, this representation made a statement yesterday that we cannot proceed with the convening of the impeachment court unless we issue notices, Mr. President. And I made mention about it because the minority leader's motion yesterday was to convene and at the same time talk about the calendar of activities, Mr. President. And so I would just like to put that on record, Mr. President, because we are not going to discuss the agenda of the, if we convene the impeachment court. Is that the case, Mr.
The
President?
matters to be discussed requiring notice included the schedule, proposed schedule of the
Yes.
impeachment complaint, which needed the presence of the parties. However,
Because if we can do it by ourselves, for example, Mr. President, just approving our rules on impeachment,
However-
issuing summons, we don't need to issue notices. Is that correct, Mr. President?
However, there are certain matters that the court can do motu proprio.
Yes.
And it would perhaps include these matters, which is up for the consideration of the court once we convene. So
Thank
again,
you, Mr. President, thank you.
Senator Bato is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just would like to counter the statement of Senator Joel Villanueva, Mr. President. You know, as the good Senate President mentioned yesterday, the Senate dismissed the impeachment complaint against Ombudsman Gutierrez after she resigned without convening the impeachment court. Therefore, the Senate, without convening into an impeachment court, is not prohibited from dismissing the impeachment case, Mr. President. It's very clear. When you say iba, iba nga kasi nag-resign. Pero still, the capacity or the legality of the action of the Senate not convened as an impeachment court was not questioned. So therefore, considering this case, I think we can do the same, Mr. President.
Mr. President, if I may, Mr. President, this is in reaction, Mr.
With the
President.
permission of the gentlemen who have the floor, Chair will suspend for a few minutes because you will most likely simply engage in a debate because clearly you both have different positions on the matter. Session is suspended. Chair would like to make a ruling with the permission and indulgence of the gentleman who had the floor earlier. Again, to reiterate the parliamentary status. It is the opinion of Senator Villanueva that we can only act on the motion of Senator Bato if we convene if we constitute ourselves and convene as an impeachment court. It is the opinion of Senator Bato that we can act on the matter sitting as a Senate in plenary. While both are considered, while the chair considers both legal and possible and probable, the chair prefers that we convene as an impeachment court first before we act on the motion of Senator Bato, and after we approve the rules, that will be the first item in the agenda of the court after being seconded by Senator Go.
Point of clarification.
Yes, Majority Leader.
With the permission of Senator Bato, would that mean, Mr. President, that the motion pending right now would have to be reiterated before the impeachment trial court by the movant, Mr. President?
Yes, that is correct, Your Honor.
And
Given the position of the chair, Senator Bato.
Yeah, with the indulgence of the Senate
Yes,
President.
please.
May I respectfully request that before the ruling is made, or you have made the ruling already, so I therefore object momentarily your ruling because I have to consult my
Session is
My
suspended.
colleague.
Session is suspended for a minute.
okay.
For the last time,
Mr.
the
President.
chair will now state the parliamentary status. Senator Bato made a motion that Senator Go wanted to second. Senator Joel took the position that we should sit as an impeachment court before we can act on that motion. For the chair, the suggestion of Senator Villanueva is well taken, while recognizing also the position of Senator Bato, although the chair prefers the position of Senator Villanueva that we first convene as an impeachment court before acting on the motion. So the chair hereby rules that in order to act on the motion of Senator Bato, we should first convene as an impeachment court by this representation presiding over the oath taking of the members of the Senate, where the first item in the agenda of the impeachment court, after we approve our rules, will be to act on the motion of Senator Bato, listen to the seconding speech of Senator Go, and perhaps the seconding speech also of Senator Padilla, or whomsoever would like to second the motion, allow the members to speak before dividing the House. So, therefore, Chair will suspend session in order to allow the members to kindly don your robes, impeachment robes, so that the chair can subscribe the oath to the members of the impeachment court so that we can convene the impeachment court and do the items rather that the chair mentioned earlier. Senator Bato.
Mr. President, I think I got the point of the good minority leader. And I would like to expound this, Mr. President, that after we take oath, Mr. President, can we go back as a Senate, not as an impeachment court, para pagbigyan na makapagsalita yung aking mga kasamahan, si Senator Bungo at si Senator Robin Hood Padilla, not as an impeachment court, but as a Senate, Mr. President. Just reverting back our status after taking an oath.
Mr. President, may I make a suggestion?
Senator Alan is recognized.
Sir, konting patience po from someone na mas madalas makipag-away kaso sa ipagbati ang ating mga kasama. May I propose this? I disagree with Senator Bato in dismissing the case. I agree with him based on former Chief Justice Puno's statement. And naniniwala kasi ako pag jurisdiction, titignan muna natin sa body. Having said that, tama ang ruling ng Senate President that either or, which is better. The only reason I think that better yung impeachment court because we will take an oath of political neutrality. While there's no test for that, konsensya na natin lahat once we take our oath. May I suggest, because I think the konting disagreement between my two brothers, Brother Joel and Brother Robin, is may feeling na hindi natin pinapasalita yung iba. May feeling naman ng minority dahil mas konti sila ay sinusupil ang kanilang karapatan isulong ang isang constitutional duty. May feeling naman yung iba dito sa likod na bakit masusunod yung minority. But I think, Mr. President, when we convene as an impeachment court, am I correct? Senator Bongo and Senator Robin and anyone who wants to speak on the issue of dismissal or any other motion will be able to speak and can move that their statement also be reflected in our session after or tomorrow.
That is correct, Your Honor.
So that they don't have to repeat it twice. Because the problem, Senator Bato is not an attorney, but he's talking like an attorney. So Senator Batorni, my humble opinion is mas mabuting mag-oath at doon because the statement of Senator Bongo and Senator... Ako mismo, I wanna argue bakit hindi dismiss. If I argue it here now, then I will have to argue again in the impeachment court. But if we argue it in the impeachment court, then move that it also be in the records of the legislative session, then we have both of best worlds, if it's acceptable to you. Yeah. If it's acceptable to you, Brother Robin. Yeah. And to the minority leader. Thank you, Mr. President.
The point of Senator Cayetano, accepted by the members so mentioned, is well taken. Chair now again reiterates its ruling. The chair will suspend the session until 6 p.m. This evening in order to afford. Gaano katagal ba nyo kailangan magbihis? Huh? Forthwith, di ba?
6:15 probably, Mr. President. Would be
Chair
a reasonable
hereby
time.
orders that session is suspended until 6:15
Thank you, Mr. President.
to afford our members time to don their impeachment robes in order for the members rather, to subscribe. Ano? That is your option, to subscribe to the oath, approve the rules, and dispose of the motion of Senator Bato. So ordered, session